Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Providence School Board Session meeting to order. Today is January 7th, 2026. And I would love to call a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Tyrell Stevens.
Present.
19 Mahindle.
Present.
Angel Newman. Present. Michelle Pons. Present. Corey Jones.
Present.
Mireya Mendoza. Jenny Mercado. Present. Heidi Silverio. Stephen Williamson.
Present.
And John Torrance.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda on tonight. Do I have a motion? Motion's been made by Chairman Mahigbu. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. We are going to now move to items 3.1, public comment right to be heard. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone tonight signed up for public comment?
Angel Lopez.
Angel Lopez. You have 2 minutes, all right?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay? Or does it need to be turned down?
No, it's on.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Lopez. I'm here in front of you all as a resident of Providence. I attended Providence schools from 1989 to 2001. I took advantage of all the things Providence school students I had at my disposal, but I know exactly what it means like to be from a marginalized community and attend an underserved school. I graduated third in my class in Mount Pleasant. I played 2 varsity sports, and I graduated the class of 2005 from Boston College. I've been trying to reach out to y'all since the first day of school because it came to my attention that a school bus stop is being used near a device that isn't regulated by the state or the city. I've been ahead of this game since 2017. This is in my neighborhood in the zip code of 02909. I documented the bus stop. I have pictures from 2019 and from 2025, and there's a clear notice there that's covered by the street sign. So, I've been trying to get your attention. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. This is a topic that I do know a lot about. I've been advocating against these devices and also been requesting information, ARPA requests to get it from what are these devices doing. It's possible they're probably sharing information with ICE right now as we speak, which is putting all of those kids in danger. So I have a petition that I have created. I haven't circulated it yet, but I'm serious. So I'm gonna do something to make sure that this doesn't happen. Again, I moved the bus stop the first time in 2019. That was right outside my residence, and it hasn't been used until this year. So I'm coming to urgently request that you all support me and the Providence school students on this. We will hear more about this. I've had issues with sending out emails. It seemed like I got through today using my Gmail account. And that's all I wanted to share with you all. Please be on the lookout. If your emails are working, you will get emails with the documentation I have, and I'll be around if you want to.
Thank you. Ready for public comment?
That's it.
We have a couple of written comments. They'll be added into the record on tonight. I would like to move to action items. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from 10/22/25 and 11/10/25. Do I have a motion? Motion's been made by Chairman Mahigbu. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. We're going to move to items 4.2, contract review, TNTP. Do I have a motion to approve items 4.2? Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. My apologies. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I would like to move to items 4.3, emergency expenditure, repairs in telephones and PA systems. Do I have a motion to approve items 4.3? Motion's been made by Dr. Williamson. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Mahigaboo. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. 4.4, do we have anyone from the district to come forward for ABM contract extension? How are you, Deputy Superintendent?
Very good.
We'd love to just get like an overview of this contract. I know I've spoken to Dr. Williamson and the committee has recommended it for approval. Just an overview for the committee.
And is the microphone on?
Yes.
Okay, great. For those of you who were at the board at the time and for those who are new, we went out to bid for integrated facilities management contract in 2023. So that was an extensive process that involved members of our team in central office. We had members of the school building committee essentially to review an RFP for a replacement or our custodial contract. So this is a contract that does repairs, maintenance, and grounds for all of our schools. That contract had a number of major changes in it. One was to make it performance-based. So the prior contract was task-based, meaning it was really based around how many times a task was performed, rather than saying, here's what needs to be done, here's what the outcome we need to see, and really measure it that way versus based on task. It was also a way to combine some smaller contracts. We used to have contracts separate for snowplow and other things, and those are now kind of all included in this one contract. So we went out to bid. We had a procurement process. We had 3 bidders, and ultimately 2 were close, ABM and Aramark. ABM was awarded the contract both by having the lowest cost as well as the highest rated contract. And that contract and those bids were for all bidders provided contracts that were for a 3-year base contract and 2 2-year extensions. So the 3-year contract is expiring at the end of this year, and the summary form in front of you is for that first 2-year extension. The reasons we feel confident and comfortable extending it are twofold. First, when we did this RFP process, and I should have mentioned, the award was brought to the school board, voted and recommended on by the school board, and approved by the commissioners. So the original contract was provided and approved by the school board. So two main reasons that I would share why we feel confident and comfortable moving forward with the extension. First, when we compared the initial bids, where we saw the lowest, the most cost savings was actually in the extension years. So if you'll see on page 2, in this extension, ABM's bid was roughly $1.3 million less than Aramark. And so we feel if we were, we feel confident that the second extension is actually going to be cheaper than what we would see if we went out to bid again, and certainly if we went with a competitor. Second, we've had a strong record of performance. So we are in year 3 of this contract. We had one of the most, what felt like a very successful school opening this year for a number of reasons, one of which our schools were in great shape. So we feel, we have the full team who works with them is not here today, but we have a strong working relationship. Always room for growth and improvement, but we feel very confident in the work they've done and approving them for the 2-year extension.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, you want to add anything?
No, we had a full discussion about all the aspects of this, of the finance subcommittee, and I feel comfortable recommending.
One second, I'm just don't get into discussion and then after we can discuss. We have a motion to approve items 4.4 ABM contract extension. Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Board Member Mercado, and now we are in discussion. Chairman Hagel.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys amazing.
Chairman, can you?
I just want to thank Zach and you guys did an amazing job. I like that this contract is performance-based. Can you explain more to the board if we happen to complain, certified work?
So could you repeat the question? What happens if we're not satisfied?
Yeah.
so on a day-to-day basis, we have a team that works directly and can relay those concerns to the ADA management team. I believe the contract also, and I can review it, there is, if the district is ever, we can provide notice to terminate the contract if we ever feel that the performance is unacceptable. So we do have those options, and obviously we hope we never get to that point, but we do have day-to-day ways of working with the management team there to ensure that they're continuing to meet their standards.
Any other discussions by board member? And Zach, what would be the, I'll talk to you after. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am gonna move over to items 4.5. Vice President Newman will lead this discussion. It's discussion and vote to recommend for board approval, a list describing board policies to include those legally mandated, and B, a list describing current policies to be renamed rules/protocols, revision and implementation of which is to be delegated to the superintendent. Vice President Newman?
Hello. Good evening, everybody. So if folks look at sort of the middle of their packet on page 1, it says Providence School Board Policy and Superintendent Administration Manual. Does everyone have access to that page? We're not going to go through it in detail, but I just want to make sure it's at your fingertips in case anyone has any questions. And please, Secretary Fonts, feel free to chime in wherever you see fit. So over the last couple of months, the policy committee, I think actually starting in September 2025, we've been working with the Council of Great City Schools, which are a national training organization that the school board has been guided by, coached by over the last year. We worked with them on a number of different experiences, including the community listening sessions, looking at our bylaws as a board, and really, it was really cool to actually dig in and look at our policies as a school board and as a district, building on the work that the district actually has made it really easy. They had gone through this extensive process and looked at all the policies, sort of like created a audit of what policies needed to be updated or reviewed, and check the different dates. It was really, the school board walked into a good situation where we had a very organized bucket of policies. And still, even with that, the Council of Great City Schools helped the school board understand that it was really important for us as a school board and as a district to understand who needs to own what policy, right? And so we spent the last couple of months with the district, with the policy committee, looking through every single policy and determining whether we think it should be a school board policy or if it needs to be a rule and regulation that the district owns. And so what you all have in front of you is a recommendation from the policy committee that we would continue to vet and move through as a policy committee, but with the help of our amazing attorney and folks who are not at this table right now. Some people are not here today. We put together a really awesome list of policies I think that the board can consider to be really strong and probably should be in our wheelhouse. And yeah, personally think the rules and regulations that are listed under delegation for the superintendent and his team, to me, make a lot of sense. But really, we just wanted to open up this discussion to see what you all think and if we have a go ahead to continue this work together.
Attorney Rappaport, do you want to add anything pertaining to this manual? Anything legally you wanted to speak on?
Sure, I can just make a couple of points
Yes,
that might be helpful. It's on. The purpose of this review that Vice President Newman described was to, as she said, determine and categorize the existing policies so that we could put them into, for lack of a better word, different buckets. And clean out old policies that were obsolete, and most important, identify those policies that, per the advice of the Council of Great City Schools, should be really owned by the board. The remainder of the policies that are not owned by the board, per the advice of the council, should be owned by the superintendent. And there's some confusion and debate within our community and externally about terminology. So policy is used very generically to describe lots of stuff. It can be a rule, it can be an internal school-based practice. But in the world of school boards in this state and school committees, policy is a term of legal art that really means this is the document that you use to legislate. And so what we were really trying to do is, and the folks in the group, Michelle and Angel and others were really patient with it, was to think about whether the document that was existing within the manual that exists now is board work, is governance work, falls into the categories that are listed on this sheet, or is really a kind of high-level expression of something that the superintendent needed to control. And so there's been some tentative separation. What I want to emphasize, and I know President Stevens and I have talked about some of the details, this is not a final list. This is really to give you the information so that you could give us the okay to continue to do what, from my experience working with school committees over the many years, is a pretty radical re-envisioning of how you're going to have a policy manual, what's going to be in it and what isn't. It's all going to be part of a governance manual or an administrative manual, but some of the work that will be delegated will be given to the superintendent with some direction to decide how to implement and decide how to write. So there's going to be a pretty significant offloading of sort of basic operational stuff to the superintendent to do as he or she sees fit, with the really governance related stuff in the hands of the board. And AJ Crabble was very emphatic that unless you're going to really own it and take care of it, pass it down. With that said, there are going to be some decisions that you all will want to make through the policy committee folks, what you might want to own, even though it's kind of operational. And the example that AJ himself gave during the training was, do you want to have a board controlled policy on closure of schools, which happens to be kind of charged in the community sometimes, or do you want to push that down to the superintendent? The other sort of high level issue that you want to think about is to ensure that while you're delegating, I should say, some of this work down, and I don't mean down, but putting it in the operational bucket, you want to make sure that the superintendent has direction so that the values and vision of the community and the board is respected. One final caveat, and then I'll stop. There are a number of policies which are legally required, which aren't truly board governance work. For example, on your agenda tonight is a Title IX policy. You have to have one as a board. That can't be delegated. It really must be yours. And so in addition to the governance policies that the board's going to own, there are a certain number of policies which are legally required, some of which candidly you don't have. So your existing policy manual is missing some policies. And we had a very good discussion at the last meeting about how you might want to refurbish and refine some of your policies around equity and non-discrimination. a Title VI policy under the Civil Rights Act of 1960. No, I'm saying it wrong, but there's a Title VI policy aligned with Title IX that would let you implement a certain kind of practice and protection for students who may be discriminated against on the basis of race, separate from the bullying policy. So we talked about adding certain legal policies that don't exist, and making sure that the policy manual is fully legally compliant, as well as passing over certain operational policies to the superintendent. And then there was a whole lot of laughter about certain obsolete policies from like 1972 that were 2 or 3 lines that obviously could be discarded. So it's a big project, and the folks doing it have put in a lot of hours. And there's a lot more work to be done, but we just they wanted you to be on board with this reform before another, 4 months were invested in the effort.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
something, President.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to be clear, like we're asking you all to basically vote or adopt the diet, like breaking it up in this way. School board kind of ownership, delegation for the superintendent. The other part of that is changing the language with what we're delegated to the superintendent from policy to kind of administrative, or that allows them to, like the employee handbook. As it is right now as a policy, it's like they would have to come to us to get approval to kind of change it. It's like when we put it as delegation, it gives them kind of flexibility to change day-to-day operational things that really land in their bucket anyway.
Yep, and the administrative policies will be called rules and protocols. Yeah, Vice President Newman.
Yeah, and and thank you, Ms. Rappaport. I think that was really informative, and I think that the why, you know what I mean? Like why go through the length of doing all this, right? Like, it's because we want to make sure that the district has autonomy, right? To deal with the operational things that they're experts in, right? And then we want to, as a board, be accountable for dealing with what we are experts in, which is what community wants and needs. We're striving to be experts in that, right? But that's why we're in these seats, is to represent the vision and values of community. And so we want to get real clear with ourselves more than anything about like what is ours to hold and what is the district's to hold. So that way each body has more autonomy and we can be good at what we do without feeling like we have to muddle and be in everybody's business and stuff, like for things that really one group may just need to own more and not be muddled up by the process that Secretary Fonts is talking about.
Chairman Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for all the work that, the folks of the policy committee did in this. As some of you may know, I'm a policy professional in my day job, and, some of the first work that I was tasked to do is to do exactly this, to separate procedure from policy, and really in hopes to reduce the amount of friction that, can happen on a day-to-day basis when, someone who's writing the policy is having too much of a say-so or too much of a role in that. I think that it's also important to mention that, with the goals and guardrails, it's a lot easier for me at least to accept this vote because the goals and guardrails are creating exactly that kind of roadway of like where we want the district to go. So I think the next thing is to, kind of clip off the training wheels and allow the district to, take that journey and get there how they think is best to get there. So definitely in support of this, and thank you for everyone from Sarah to Angel and the rest of the leadership, Tyrell and Beach and Heidi for the work y'all done on this.
Thank you, Chairman Mahalo. Use your mic.
I want to make sure I understand this. On the first page, C delegations, I see that superintendent relation, superintendent recruitment, responsibility. Evaluation. I'm talking about the first page, C on delegations.
Yeah, I think those I think it was just explaining delegation, but we're not delegating
Right.
like those policies. I think if you flip the page, it talks about I believe it's page 3 or 4. I think it's page 4, which will be delegated to the superintendent. And then the page after that, or the page before that talks about what is under the board scope.
Page 4. This makes sense. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, basically, A through E are board policies. A through, and I think they're just labeled that way to sort of like group the type of policy they are. And then on page 4, that's what would actually be delegated to the superintendent.
The word delegation gets used by the council in a different way from the way I was just using it. It has two meanings. In the first page where it says delegation, that's how the council refers to the policies that relate to the board's relationship with the superintendent. It's a funny, confusing, repetitious extra use of the word that I understand causes some confusion.
I know with, so with the, on page 4 with the delegation, I think you had said it really good, Attorney Rappaport, when you had mentioned that there's some controversial policies that sort of go into the operational piece that actually makes sense for the board to have autonomy over, to really keep it as less political as possible. And I think of another policy along those lines, which is the graduation policy.
Yes.
Which could become very political. Now, I think there's a way where it could be delegated, but come before the board for some kind of approval. I think that can possibly be part of the delegation process of giving some kind of direction. But I think like that policy may be graded, I don't know, should just at the very least be pulled for some form of board approval. I think that's that. And then on 16, it talks about school meals. And it delegates that to the superintendent, but then I know on page 2 under D, and it's number 5, it says food services. I'd like to just get some clarity on that. I know a lot of these policies are very old, so a lot of them will be obsoleted anyway. But just making sure that once we approve this, that, you know, that delegation piece that the committee will work on has some kind of structure. Go ahead, Attorney Rappaport.
I'm hoping that you don't approve it word for word and understand this is a draft. What you're approving is the concept. These will shift around. I think, I know that the president has invited input from the mayor's office, and I know that there are going to be many discussions about where each policy lands. We're not done. This is just, for lack of a better word, a tentative draft to show you the project and for you to approve the project of separating the policies into board policies, superintendent rules, and then giving the policy committee the discretion and autonomy to make judgments about what the final product is going to look like. This is not hard and fast. And school meals came up because as we went through, there were votes. Should this be in which bucket? And so we made some judgments, or they did. I didn't vote on this, but there was a thought at some point that these could be identified in these categories, but these are not final.
Dr. Wingson?
Yeah, I in general, I think this is great. I think this is a great idea, and consistent with everything that we've been working on with Council of Great City Schools. The last sentence here, it will be important to ensure that the rules are not only internally consistent and legally compliant, but also transparent and readily accessible to all stakeholders, students, staff, and community members alike. I would like to maybe include some kind of language in terms of guidance for the district that also that the rules should conform to best practices or best practices and industry standards or something like that. And I think that's done already a lot. Like I learned in the ABM contract approval process that there's a National Association of Public Building Managers, which I didn't know existed, and they have their own standard for judging, you know, the condition of a building. Like, so I know that there might be, you know, accounting standards or things that are sort of professional standards and best practices based on professional the sort of rating professional associations that may not be legally required, but we should probably try to move in that direction, right, of adopting best practices and kind of following industry standards, unless there's a compelling reason not to. Right? So that would be my only thought, is that maybe we could include some sort of directional consultants. And I'm sure the school district already does that in a lot of areas, but maybe we can kind of just spread them so that we're
Absolutely.
working in that direction.
Any other questions? Now, this is just, as Attorney Rappaport had mentioned, like a project management plan. So a lot of this may change once it gets back to the policy committee. So it's really like we're just gonna approve the project management plan. But I do want to recommend approval for items 4.5. Do I have a motion? Motion's been made by Chairman Mahigo. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you, Attorney Rappaport. We're gonna go over to items 4.6, discussion and vote on board draft goals and guardrails contingent upon superintendent presenting a final draft of the interim goals and guardrails for board adoption at the January 28th, 2026 regular school board meeting. How are you, Dr. Dillon?
Well, how are you?
I am doing well.
Okay, so you actually have two documents in front of you. I want to make sure you're looking at the correct document. We had some data that was made available to us maybe an hour ago, so we updated again. So the way to know you're looking at the right document, underneath discussion of recommended next steps, there will be 6. If you see 7, then it's the old document. So after the December 10th meeting, I had an opportunity to review the feedback from the school board with our teams and to go through the goals and guardrails and as well as refining some of the interim.
Really quick, is that on?
I think it
Hear
is.
It is.
Okay.
Sorry, I can talk right up on it.
I'm sorry.
We like the singers. And so we had the opportunity to go through the goals and guardrails and refine the interims based upon the suggestions that we had made and the feedback that we had received. We also had the opportunity to take, and thank you for the preambles to each of the guardrails. So we had an opportunity to add the preambles to each of the guardrails as well. And for the most part, the interns are here for you in a very comprehensive way. We do have some feedback that we need on a couple of areas in particular, and we'll talk about those in detail. Would you like to just beginning with each goal and guardrail, I mean each goal and interim, and moving in that direction? Is that how you'd like to proceed? Okay. So if you turn to the second page, our first goal was grade 3 literacy. As a reminder, the percent of grade 3 students who score proficient on RICAS ELA assessment will increase from 24% May 2025 to 50% by May 2030. So from there, we developed interms that would help us to reach that May 2030 goal. The first interim is K2 early literacy using mastery on iReady. The percentage of K2 students demonstrating mastery in core early literacy domains of phonological awareness, target sound, high frequency words, word analysis will increase from 57% June 2025 to 75% by June 2030 on the categories on early or grade level, already end of year diagnostic. And so what you see below, this baseline looks a little bit different than the others, the baseline and annual targets, because it's K2, so there are multiple grades there. And so what we would like to see happen is that each grade, K1 and 2, will respectively increase by 3 percentage points each of those years until they reach that 75%. And then at that point, we will reestablish, I'm certain, your goals and guardrails for 2030 and beyond. The difference that you see in the next one is mastery, and it's only for grade 3, so you only have one grade there. And this is the percentage of grade 3 students demonstrating mastery in core literacy will increase from 51% June 2025 to 75% June 2030 in the categories of early or on grade level on iReady End. And so then we have the annual targets there from the baseline all the way through that 2030 goal. And then the final interim, one of the major pieces of feedback from Council of Great City Schools, we originally had up to 5 interms for each goal, and they had us reduce that to 3. So the final and third interim is the percentage of grade 3 students who score proficient on RICAS will increase from 24% to 37% by May 2030. And the way that we broke that down is according to the percentages here, from 26% reaching 37% by 2030. So the feedback, again, from Council of Great City Schools on this particular goal in interms was to decrease from 5 interms per goal to the 3 interms. The rest of the yellow highlight was the feedback that we had originally received from the board, indicating that the questions were answered, that no additions or changes were proposed, and that it felt like this particular goal in interim was aligned. Do we still? Okay, perfect. Okay, so for the next goal, it's very, very similar. It is for math, however, it's grade 4 math. If you remember grade 4, the reason why we selected this is the entryway. When we can secure students in grade 4, then we can secure them to algebra. And so that's why this one was particularly important for us. And so we had the overall goal was the percentage will increase from 23.6% proficient in May 2025 on RICAS to 36% by May 2030. And then we broke down into the interim measures. So the first interim measure was the percentage of students demonstrating mastery in core math domains on the iReady diagnostic. And we broke that down from 46% in 2025, reaching 68% in 2030. If you turn the page, we also believe that it's really important for our students to show growth. And so we wanted to be measuring to ensure that all of our students were showing typical and stretch growth. In order for a student to show more than a year's growth in a year's time, that's where they land at stretch. Typical means that they're growing about a year's in a year time. Okay, so that's the difference between stretch and typical. When we connect and combine our baseline, we had 58% of our students in this grade showing typical growth and 26% showing stretch. And so what we would like to do is to be at 92% of our students showing typical and stretch by 2030. So that is our recommendation in terms of the interim goal for math. And then we broke down our annual targets, annual progression to reach that 36% on RICAS, with the baseline being 23.6% in 2024-25, this year's, all the way down to the 2030. Again, we had no questions from the special meeting and no suggestions for change on that. So if that stands true, I think we are good with that intern. Okay. The next one is very similar to the first goal, which was grade 3 literacy. This one is grade 8 literacy. So it's set up exactly the same way, except we're looking at grade 8 students. We want to move from 15.9%, which is where we're proficient now as of May 2025, to 25% by May 2030. In order to do that, we felt it was important to not only look at grade 8, but to also work with grade 7 and measure how they were doing at the same time. So you'll see the first intern is working on increasing the diagnostic percentage from 19% to 33% by June 2030 for the students in grade 7. And then I broke down how we would get there and what the expected percentages would be each year. The second interim is for grade 8 students on that same measure. Currently, in June 2025, we were at 23% proficient, and we want to get to 36% proficient by June 2030. And so then underneath that for annual targets, you see how we broke that down from our current baseline to that goal of 36%. The final interim is the measurement of RICAS. And you can see that our baseline was 15.9%. And we've broken down the annual targets for increasing the proficiency on RICAS. There was a question by the board on the new K-8 models and whether there would be interim measures that could be added to assess the success of this structure and how we might be doing that. So the evaluation of the PK models will be measured by the district 100%. What we will be doing is looking at these same measures across different school types to see if there is alignment or difference in how the students are progressing in schools that are PK8 and schools that are traditional elementary and middle. Since we'll be using the same measures, it will be very easy for us to begin an analysis of how the students are doing based upon location. We already do this now, school to school. We are able to monitor and track differences in performance and progression by school. And in this way, we can clump the schools or collect the schools by PK8 versus elementary and middle. And the interim measures were noted as aligned, and the initial feedback was agreed upon. We did have to decrease this to 3 interim measures, and those are the 3 that we felt were the most significant. Okay. The goal 4 is the graduates with an industry credential. So the first goal was the percentage of students in grades 10 to 12 enrolled in a credential-bearing pathway will increase from 52% in June 2025 to 59% in June 2030. We broke down the percentage increases. In this one, we considered how many programs we have, how many seats we have, and where we are able to actually increase without changing or adding additional programs, or where we see different programs coming online, such as the dental program, which will be coming online. The second interim was the industry assessment attempt rate, and this is the percentage of students in grade 12 who attempt to receive the credential aligned to their career. And we want to increase that from 71% as of June 2025 to 79% in June 2030. And we broke down the annual targets accordingly. The third interim for this particular goal is the percentage of students who attain a workforce credential will increase from 14.9% in June 2025 to 20% for the class of 2030. And then again, we broke down the annual targets. We did receive questions from the board The board wanted to see an interim measure that tracks how many students who graduate with a CTE credential either continue their education in that field or enter the workforce in that field, and agreed upon the rest. Our feedback on that, it's incredibly difficult to track that because it requires the students to commit to communicating with us after they graduate. We find the same thing with students entering four-year colleges or two-year colleges. Students change their phone numbers, their emails, their addresses, and that's the only way that we have to track. And so we can provide you with as much information as we have, but I recommend that that's not an interim measure that we would feel confident that we would be giving you strong enough information with. So those are the 4 goals that are fairly solid. The 5th one is a new one.
Really quick, Dr.
Yes.
Jones, does anyone have any questions about those first 4 goals? Chairman Jones?
Yeah, just really quick. I know I've asked you this a few times, but just in case there's some folks listening, I've had a lot of folks ask me, why 23 to 36%? Why not 80%? Why not 90, right? And, you can talk a little bit about, why we can't see those type of numbers overnight, right? And why these are more reasonable.
Yeah. So there are a few things. One, what we've done is we looked at historical patterns and then made a determination based upon evidence from different strategies that we might employ in terms of their overall impact, right? And so there's a research base that suggests that if you do this particular strategy, you're likely to see X percentage of improvement over time. And so the percentages are based upon factors such as what is your baseline, what are the interventions that you'll likely propose to the school board, and that the school board will be able to fund. And also we're doing potentially five goals, and how much can you spend or spread the resources of time and people across those different 5 goals. So those are the reasons why we were really thoughtful in terms of the percentages. Now, if we were to see that we were able to move faster and further, we definitely would want to do that. But this is based upon what the research tells us about the different strategies that we will be able to suggest to you that we would like to put in place, and be spreading ourselves across 5 goals.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, goal 5. Goal 5 is a brand new area, and you had questions for it, and we're still trying to think through it as well. And so we would love to have a conversation with you. So we are in the process, and you'll see it tonight, adopting a portrait of a graduate. And our goal 5 landed in the world of the portrait of the graduate. It was on civic and global competence to enhance social emotional competency. And it was the percentage of students who graduate demonstrating proficiency on portrait of graduate civic and global engagement rubric will increase from X% to X%. We don't have a baseline because it hasn't started, right? And so that's why we had originally submitted to you X%. We are only adopting tonight, so it's not something that's in place yet. And so we had to think about, okay, what would the timeline look like for us to be able to implement, train, and also get at least 3 measures for you. And so we then took the timeline. We worked with Council of Great City Schools to think about this. And we realized the timeline would be this year, we would have it adopted and we would start communicating. By May 2027, all the staff would be trained. By May 2028, we would be in full implementation. By May 2029, we would have the ability to look at that May 28 for a baseline. And then by May 2030, we'd have the 3 data points available. So given that, we just really needed to have a conversation on what expectations were around this particular goal and the comfort level. The other question that came forward was the board being interested in social emotional competencies. And we spoke to AJ on this and also looked at what we're doing as a district. And there's a couple of things. One, many of the measures that are outside of the rubric that I'm proposing that are beyond that are really not student outcome measures. So we have to be thoughtful, like a student's sense of belonging, that's not an outcome measure, right? So that would be fine in the guardrail section, but not really in this section. And so what originally we had thought about with the team was if we are adopting and adapting rubrics from the American Association of Schools and Colleges. And we're building them from PK, and we built them, we have drafts from PK to grade 12 for each of the portrait of the graduate competencies so that they'd be measurable. The competencies from CASEL, which is the organization, the national organization around social emotional learning, has competencies that align very, very well to the global and civic competence. And so I outlined what those were. So when I look at that rubric and I look at CASEL, so self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, and self-management appear in both. And so we would need to revise the rubric, we would need to come together as a team and revise the rubric, but that would be possible. The timeline still would be that May 27 staff training, 28 implementation, 29 baseline, 2030 3 data points available, right? And so we just really needed to bring that forward for discussion and to get feedback on that. So those are the 5 goals that are currently drafted and have interns.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions? Dr. Winston?
So, that makes perfect sense to me, right? Like you're building the airplane while you're flying it. So like, we can't expect like in year 1 or year 2, we're gonna have data points or any of this. So, makes total sense to me. How does did you have a conversation with the Council of Great City Schools? Because I know they're sort of in the position of being, our guides through this process, who have been essentially appointed by the powers that be, right? So like, we need to kind of keep them in the loop. And I know they get very particular about using student outcome focused data. So what was the conversation that you had with them?
The conversation was to have an honest conversation with you about the timeline and your expectations around the fact that the measurement it needs to be developed and the training needs to happen, and so you might not have this data at the same time as the other goals, and also to make really careful decisions around, are you measuring what you're saying you're measuring? Are you having a civic and global competency goal, or are you having a social emotional goal? Because they're 2 different things and need to be measured differently. So that was the feedback from AJ, and so he thought it would be really important for us to have a conversation about really because it's the board's goal, what you would like to do in terms of moving forward with that.
Well, it was also something, it was something that came up in a lot of, I think the reason we wanted to include it is that it did come up repeatedly in the community meeting. Right. So I think we felt like we would be remiss in not trying to include them.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, in terms of civic and global competency, I value it. I think our community values it. The students, when they're engaged in these types of opportunities from K through 12 are learning at such deep levels. And so I think it will require some patience and some work, but if it's something the board wants to move forward with, I think there's value to it.
I just want to say thank you. That it was really important to hear that come out from the board, because it's just not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, and there's going to be bumps in the roads, and we really want to make sure that we do what's right for the students, that we do it the right way and not rush it. Because you know what happens when we rush, it doesn't turn out the way we want it. We wanted to make sure that it stays.
Vice President.
I just, thank you so much. I feel like I'm thinking back to our planning meeting that we all had when we were developing, and I think it could have been easy to just be like, we had some discussion about, well, if we can't measure it, should we do it? And I strongly believe that's the easy way out, that I'm really proud to say that we're not gonna do that. We are going to do the hard thing, which is like develop the ways to measure the things that matter. Like when you think, we just think about anything that stands, whether it's a building, science, any body of work, like it didn't exist at one point. And it took people to have belief enough to like count and measure and, you know, like value unquantifiable things like psychology or cognitive psychology or things like that, to like then create a practice for it that changes the world. And so like that is a probably grandiose statement, but like I feel that way about social emotional development and like the arts and things like that. And so I'm just proud that like where you all did this work, you know what I mean? Because we did our part of bringing what we heard from the community, but we're not the experts in this like you all are. So you had to like put the pieces together and do the research, and I just really feel really happy about that and very like grateful. And I'd be more than happy to like wait for the goods, you know what I mean? Like I don't think we need to like rush data that's not there, you know, like good things take time. And so it seems like you all have a very thought out plan for how to do this. It makes sense to me. I think it is important, which I'm sure you all are already thinking about, but how to integrate CASEL with Portrait of a Graduate and make sure that what is intended to be measured is actually being measured in a systematic way. Seems like where the work is.
Yes.
And so so contingent upon just making sure that you all feel confident with that. Like to me, that feels really supportive and good.
Definitely. We'll bring together a team, you know, once we have the go ahead from the school board, we'll bring together a team, Dr. Onye's office, Sandy Stewart's office, and make sure that we have the teaching and learning team working in collaboration with those two departments to make sure that we're really incorporating the CASEL, that we are looking at the competencies for the global and civic competencies, and bringing forward something for you to look at in terms of how we might measure that.
Chairman Jones.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what Soup said really resonated with me. I'm doing a case analysis for class on Michelle Rhee in DC. And basically the synopsis is that they rushed and they put in place programs they should have piloted, and you know it didn't bring the outcome they thought it would bring, and then they changed the entire school district in order to kind of accommodate these ideas that didn't actually pan out to deliver the way they thought it would. So taking our time and make sure we do it right is really important.
Any other questions? I totally agree with everything everyone had said. I want to try to shape a motion now. The question is, I believe that we're okay with goals 1 through 4, some of the interim measurements, and hopefully 5 we'll be able to.
The 28th.
Got it. Okay. So can you give me the timeline really quick? I'm so sorry. So the school will be the 28th.
So I'll just refine the language for the 28th, but it's really basically the timeline that we'll be going for. I need to talk to AJ, honestly, if that's okay. I need a little bit more feedback on how I should frame this now that everyone is moving forward with this and they're okay with the timeline. I just want to talk to AJ a little bit more about how do I word it.
Okay.
I'm just curious, I don't remember this from our discussions. Is it absolutely essential that we have interim measures being reported on for each year, for each goal? Or could a goal that is new say, we will have, in 3 years, we will begin reporting on
Right.
this, right?
Right.
Like, so the
That's what
interim
I was,
measures,
yeah, so it'd be like 0%, baseline year, yes.
Yeah.
So, that's what I just wanna ask him, how they typically have that
Right.
framed.
So we could have 2 or 3 interim measures that are just not gonna be, that come due essentially 3 years out or something.
Right, because the timeline and doing the work isn't an interim measure, because they're not student outcomes, and so that's just all I need to work on with, now that I know you want to move forward with this, but there won't be any student outcomes, what does that look like? There will be student outcomes, it just won't be in the first couple of years.
It'll be reported.
Any other questions?
The only question, it's not a question, it's the timeline will be for, this, on January 28th, our next meeting.
So I'll have, based upon feedback from tonight, I'll bring another version of this to that meeting.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay. Can we get into the guardrails piece?
sure. So the guardrails are structured fairly similarly in terms of interms. Just to remind, because I know there was a lot of questions about the guardrails. I don't know if any of the school board members want to talk about why they're structured that way, or if you'd like me to, okay.
I can do it. I know you had to talk a lot, which we really appreciate. So when we went for our first, after we did the community listening sessions, they wrapped up at the end of September. We then spent time, whether it was going back into community or talking to the mayor's office or the district or public comment. We went to the equity subcommittee. We sent information to Pat. Some of us went to DWAC. Like, we've been around, and then we just talked to people in community about what they want, what they think about the goals and the guardrails that we came up with. We got some key feedback. One of those feedback points was absolutely that folks wanted to see more social emotional, like kind of deep in goal 5. So we kind of just talked about that. There were definitely some like really great suggestions about, reordering the guardrails as well, making sure that we're being intentional about what we feel is like foundational to achieve like the other ones. So we did some reordering. There was like a call to make sure that instead of like singling in on like one group of people, say like teachers, to like be accountable for student outcomes, that our vision statement, which is very systemic, also that our guardrails follow suit, and that it's about calling everybody in and holding everyone accountable for student success and not just one group. And then one of the big pieces of feedback that we got from a couple of folks is like, why are the guardrails so like mean? And we're like, well, they're not intended to be that way. And per our coaching from the Council of Great City Schools, we learned that guardrails are meant to actually create more autonomy for school districts, to be very clear about what cannot happen. So that way the possibilities of what can happen opens up. Still with that said, we don't want to signal division. We want to be unified. We want people to feel good. We want the district to feel empowered and for community to feel empowered. And so we created like a preamble that centers the value of the guardrail, but then is followed by a very explicit thou shalt not statement. So that way the district has clarity and ultimately more autonomy to make decisions.
Okay. I think it's on. Is it on? Okay. So that being said, we have 4 guardrails with preambles that explain why the guardrail exists. So the first one is the district will base its decisions on the experiences and needs of students who are most impacted by systems of oppression, ensuring every action supports their opportunity to learn, thrive, and be fully supported. And so in order for this to happen, the superintendent shall not make decisions that have a disproportionately negative impact on students furthest from educational justice. So based upon this guardrail, the team really thought about what measures could we use in order to ensure that this is true and happening. And so the first interim that we came up with is the superintendent will increase the percentage of students enrolled in advanced academics for MLL students from 20% in June 2025 to 35% June 2030. And then we broke down those percentages. So it was really important for us that with such a large number of MLL students that they're represented in our advanced classes, and we've begun that work already. And so that's the first interim. Our students with IEPs were very low in terms of representation in our advanced academics. So we have a similar interim for students with IEPs, indicating that the superintendent will increase the percentage of students enrolled in advanced academics for students with IEPs from 3.5% to 10% by June 2030. And the third interim was the district will reduce the number of student subgroups who are disproportionately represented in each school from 46% to 36% by June 2030. That one, and what that means is that if we have a breakdown of our demographics, we want to work to ensure that our demographic representation is fairly consistent across all of our schools. Now, for a dual or bilingual school, we might have a higher percentage of students who are multilingual, but for the most part, what we really want to ensure is that there's kind of a common representation of students from all of our subgroups in all of our schools, that it's not heavily weighted one or the other, if that makes sense. So that was guardrail 1. There was a question from the school board regarding this. It was after some discussion, the school board recognizes the guardrail measures are more student outcome focused because we had, again, our student assessment data. So we did change these based upon that feedback. So it was really more about holding us as administrators and the district accountable to serving the students and making sure that they had opportunity, access, and were represented in our different programs and schools. Okay. Guardrail 2 was community partnership and transparency. So the preamble is district decisions will be shaped through meaningful collaboration with the most impacted with transparent communication to both participants and the broader public, showing how input was considered in final outcomes. Therefore, the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members most closely impacted by those changes. So our first interim proposal is that will decrease the average number of days between engagement start and decision for non-emergency decisions that impact more than 20% of the PPSD school community will decrease from more than 60 days in June 2025 to less than 30 days by June 2030. And we have the breakdown of the annual targets. The second interim was the percentage of major initiatives with documented engagement before decisions will be 100% by June 2030. So we want to establish the baseline and get to 100% engagement by 2030. I will have that baseline data for us for our next meeting, and these numbers will be filled in. Essentially working with FACE, we just need a little bit more time to get some data here for you, but that will be filled in for the next meeting. And then the third target, or third interim, is the percentage of post-implementation feedback satisfaction will increase from baseline year of June 2026. So we will do the baseline surveys to 60% by June 2030 on post-implementation feedback surveys. And the board's feedback originally was to add add to the guardrail and will promote transparency in PPSD operations, which we added. And that the proposed interim measures were aligned and agreed upon at that meeting. Do you want me to move on? Okay. Guardrail 3, safe, supportive, and restorative learning environments. Learning environments will center students' physical, emotional, and cultural well-being using restorative approaches that build community and repair harm rather than relying on punitive or policing measures. Therefore, the superintendent shall not permit school environments or practices that compromise student safety or well-being physically, emotionally, or culturally, including the use of policing as the primary safety strategy.
Dr. Dillon, before you continue, I just want to give a big shout out to Aubrey in the back for coming to our meeting in December and like really bringing in, I call it was a 3-pointer. It was like a 3-pointer because I think we all were like, oh, that guardrail's fine. Nothing wrong with it. And then Aubrey's like, hold on. Like safety can be interpreted in lots of different ways. And so I just want to give you your flowers because that's the exact type of like engagement and like critical thinking that we need, and it totally changed the direction of this guardrail. So thank you, Aubrey.
And happy to receive more feedback because we had 5 interns and we had to cut them down to 3. So please provide any feedback. The first interim is suspension rate disproportionality. So the suspension rate for 100 students will decrease between all student groups from 6.4% in June 2025 to 3.4% by June 2030. We broke that down into annual targets. We're really working with the principals on this currently. It's something we already have in action. So that is our first recommendation. The second recommendation is that the district will increase students reporting feeling a sense of belonging for middle and high school students, particularly because that was a low spot for our panorama survey data, with 31% of the students indicating they felt a sense of belonging. And we want that to reach to where our elementary schools are currently at 53% by June 2030 on that panorama survey. We broke down the interms for that, targets for that, I'm sorry. And then the other area that came up from feedback from the board was on having a measure around bullying data. So the district will decrease the percentage of cases determined as bullying from 1.3 per 100 students in June 2025 to 0.3 per 100 students by 2030. This is a fairly ambitious goal and will require many of those strategies that we'll bring forward to you regarding restorative practices, right? So remember from AJ, these are not the strategies, these are the outcomes, but so when we come back, we'll be talking about, well, how do you propose to get there? And those strategies that you've asked to see, such as restorative practices, will come up in those conversations and in the budget for those. So just want, I'm not missing them, but those are strategies, not measures, and so that's why you don't see them yet. Let's see. You had restorative language, so we added restorative language in the text of the guardrail. We amended the suspension rates. We added the bullying data. We do measure, Dr. Onye's office does measure discrimination, and so does HR. We could have, although it's not an annual target here, but that's something the school board could always ask for an annual report on. And yes, so I'm hoping that we capture the language you requested around this not being a policing guardrail, but one for safety and support. And the way that we thought of measuring those were based upon your feedback on bullying, suspension, and sense of belonging. And then guardrail 4 was high quality educators for CSI and redesign schools. And I think that this one, you received a lot of feedback, but I think when you see the data, it will help. So the guardrail preamble is that students in CSI and redesigned schools will be taught and supported by highly effective, well-prepared educators and leaders committed to accelerating student learning. Therefore, the superintendent shall not allow educators or leaders who have received appropriate support but continue to not meet performance expectations over time to serve in schools identified as CSI or redesigned. So we have proposed the following 3 interim measures. The first, the percentage of teachers, certified staff, and administrators newly placed in CSI schools with a rating of effective or higher will increase from 69.8% in June 2025 to 75% by June 2030. And we have the annual targets broken down more. So these again are those that aren't currently in the CSI schools and are being newly placed in the CSI and redesigned schools. Interim number 2, the percentage of teachers, certified staff, and administrators in CSI redesigned schools scoring effective and higher will increase from 90% in June 2025 to 94% in June 2030. And there you have the breakdown of annual targets. And then the final interim we're proposing is the percentage of teachers, certified staff, and administrators demonstrating growth on professional improvement plans will increase from 78% in June 2025 to 86% by June 2030. The feedback that we had received was making sure that there are administrators included in that bucket that we're measuring. So we have added that we wanted to clarify that an educator will not be assigned to teach unless they've received support. That interim measures are aligned and agreed upon, and that we are looking for growth and growth opportunities. And we wanted to change it to educators, staff, and administrators. Our measures that we have that we can confidently provide to you under the Rhode Island model are educators, certified staff, and administrators. So we changed the language to educators, certified staff, and administrators. So those were the 3 that we recommended. Open to feedback on any of the interns on guardrails or any questions.
Any questions by board members? Secretary Fox?
It's not really a question. I'm sitting here listening to you read this. I'm getting emotional because so much work went into this, from the board to the community, to the district, the city, everybody. I feel like not only was the community heard, but the board was heard with our feedback. You guys are very intentional and mindful about all of these updates that you did, and I just want to say thank you. I know it's a tremendous amount of work that you guys have done, and I see you and just want to say thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Dr. Winton?
Yeah, I'd like to also just thank you for your work on this, and I'd also like to say that I think, my memory of this whole process, and it seems like it's been longer than a year since I've been on the board, so, is that, initially when we started engaging this process with the Council of Great City Schools, I think it was always the understanding that we were not going to try to do a full stop on everything the district is doing and reboot, or that we were going to abandon everything that was in the TAP, which was developed through its own extensive community process, but rather that we would take the guidance of the Great City Schools, and if there was a flaw in the TAP, that it was maybe overly ambitious, right? And they really hammered into us the idea that a plan that addresses everything addresses nothing, right? So that we needed to prioritize a handful of goals. And in our work with the community, we, I think we found that the community was consistent with what they had asked for in the TAP, right? That it wasn't something radically new, but through that process, we were able to identify that there are certain priorities that just came up over and over and over again. And I reread the TAP after I looked at the goals and guardrails, and really, like, everything that is in here was in there in some way, shape, or form, you know what I mean? So, you know, a couple of them were explicit goals within the TAP that we were retaining essentially, and that was always our intention, right? That we were not gonna try to like shut everything down and reinvent the wheel, you know? And I think this has proved to be a really productive process, talking to community, but also keeping PTSD engaged and, you know, working with the things that we're already doing where you already feel like this progress being made, and like, you know, we don't want to shut that down or completely abandon the things. And really, there's nothing in here, including the civics piece, which was sort of addressed not as a goal, but as a sort of an aspirational sort of sentiment, right, in the TAP. So I think, you know, I just want to highlight that, right, that this is not about, you know, a coup, a palace coup, where we're just coming in and like, you know, taking over and throwing everything out that the community has worked on and that the PPSD has worked on so hard for many years. It's really about this process, which was guided by the Council of Great City Schools to curate our areas of focus in a way, right? And I appreciate the work that you've done already in the past before I showed up, and the work that you've done since I showed up, you know, in doing that. So I know sometimes I come across as a bit contentious, so I just want to make sure that I feel like I do. So I just want to make sure that I get that.
No, critical questions are important, right?
Yeah.
Vice President Newman?
Yeah, just plus one in that, and I won't be long, but it's a thing where it's like, we know that this isn't just about PTSD, this is about Rhode Island, right? Like, if all of our students can read, write, do math, think critically, be civically engaged, social emotionally informed, and intelligent, like, man, that's Rhode Island for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is Rhode Island. This is our lawmakers, people working in our nonprofits, our future teachers, our parents, our families, like, these are them. And they exist and they're real now, and they are our youth community, but they are gonna one day, very soon, be sitting in these seats. So it's like, if we do, this is not, the beautiful thing about this is like, it's not like a lofty like dream like of like text that's gonna sit on a shelf. Like, these all have strategies, they have legs. It's all about training people to make this happen. Like, this is a living, breathing document in the sense that it's already being put to work, but it's gonna be put to work every single day. And the fruits of it is going to be like a strong, confident, like Rhode Island, not even just a school district. And it's really, really exciting. And it's not perfect. And I know there's going to be bumps along the way. And as a school board, we're going to have the districts back and making tough decisions. Like, because we all know, like, these are just lofty ideas if we don't fund them. They are just lofty ideas if we don't defend them. And that means sometimes sacrificing things that we want. We want it all, you know? And so, I guess that's just a reminder to self, because I know I too, you know, can be a little bit contentious and just want to advocate for young people and families. And also I know, like, it's hard work to do. And so we got your back, you know, and we appreciate you all for tolerating us for the last couple of months as we put this together. Because we had some rough meetings, but I left every single one of them feeling like we all grew. And we get this, so this is really cool. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members? So I think and correct me if I'm wrong, the only feedback on tonight was to move goal 5. Is that correct?
To adjust it with AJ's feedback for the meeting on the 28th.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. So items.
Thank you.
So item 4.6. Charlie, I need your help with this.
Sure. So maybe there should be a motion to approve item 4.6, subject to the adjustment as it relates to that last goal that Dr. Dillon identified.
Sounds good. How would we?
Have a crack at it?
Yeah, that'd be good.
So I make a motion that we approve goals 1 through 4 unconditionally, and that we approve goal 5 contingent on updates from Dr. Dillon about the correct interim for the interim goals.
I think we gotta get the guardrails
I think
too.
that's fine. Why don't we take one motion as it relates to guardrails 1 through 4 first? And
Okay.
then deal with the last guardrail by a separate motion? Is that
Okay.
Okay. that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so I make a motion that we approve goals 1 through 4.
Second.
We have a motion, there has been a second, any, discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions, the motion passes. Next motion.
And then I think as it relates to the second guardrail or second goal, I'm sorry.
So goal 5.
Goal 5, I think you would approve goal 5, subject to the modification that Dr. Dillon is going to make after conferring with the Council of Great City Schools.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve goal 5, subject to the modifications made by Dr. Dillon in conjunction with the Council of Great City Schools.
So moved, do we have a second?
Second.
Been seconded by Secretary Fonts. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then we want one motion for all the guardrails.
Yeah. I think
So I make a motion that we approve all of the guardrails as stated without modification, right? Yeah, without modification.
So moved, do we have a second? Second. Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good job, school board. And school department, thank you. All right, we're gonna go over to items 4.7, discussion and vote on approval of second year of board professional development on student outcome focused governance to the Council of Great City Schools contingent on funding. Do I have a motion to approve items 4.6? Motion's been made by Secretary Foster, have a second? Second. Second's been made by Chairman Maple, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. We're gonna go over to items 4.8. We have a bullying and harassment students draft policy for second read and adoption. Do I have a motion to approve items 4.8? Motion. Motion been made by Vice President Newman, do I have a second? Second's been made by Secretary Fonts, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Items 4.9 is a Title IX draft policy, second read and adoption. Do I have a motion to approve 4.9? Motion's been made by Secretary Fonts, a second. Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. We are now gonna head over to items 4.10, discussion on community meetings that will be led by Vice President Newman, and then we'll get right into the portion of a graduate presentation. Vice President Newman.
All right, thank you so much. So everyone should have a paper that says quarterly regional community meetings. Does everyone have that on hand? Okay, awesome. So I'll just kind of go through it and then we'll see if there's any discussion. The context is we had a really great time doing community listening sessions. I think we all wanted to do more, and we also know we're fitting into a timeline that has lots of different people involved and entities. And so, we got a good couple months out of that. We don't want that to be the end, though. That's why I think we all, as we've talked over the couple of months, felt comfortable with how many we actually did, because we're like, the community listening sessions are the start of a conversation with community. They can't be the end. And so well, we want to propose, I've talked with President Stevens and Secretary Fonts, and I think we've talked lightly about this at other meetings, is the board thinking about making a commitment to doing quarterly meetings within our own regions. And so the purpose of doing quarterly meetings, at first we had said monthly, and we're like, maybe that's a bit heavy. So we're like, okay, we all actually have other jobs too, so let's maybe say quarterly. We can entertain monthly if anyone's feeling really ambitious about it, but for now, quarterly. So the purpose would be to build shared understanding, trust, and capacity between the school board and our communities by creating consistent, welcoming spaces to 1, share information, 2, hear feedback, and then 3, collectively engage with the district's goals and guardrails. We know that we're going to be getting updates as a board, but we want to make sure we have time to talk them through with community in a casual setting and in a real human way, and not just in this sort of format. So these convenings are designed to help the board and community better support students in the district in living into the vision we set together. So overview, we propose that the school board members host quarterly regional community meetings across the district's 5 regions. Board members would partner in pairs by region and serve as co-hosts for meetings in their assigned area. Each convening would center community voice, relationship building, and shared learning. So the proposed format and structure would be again quarterly, roughly 2 hours. Location really to be determined by those 2 board members, but ideally in a place that's community-based where families already gather. And so partnering, whether it be at faith-based spaces, recreation centers, libraries, community centers, etc. And as I said, host would be the folks within the given regions. The core components would be information sharing, so giving updates on district priorities, progress, upcoming decisions related to the goals and guardrails, making sure that we have structured opportunities for community feedback, specifically from families, students, educators, and community members. We've also thought a lot about reading circles, almost like community-wide book clubs, where they're guided, accessible discussions of short readings connected to the goals and guardrails, student outcomes, and shared accountability. So for example, if we think about one of our guardrails, we talk a lot about restorative justice. Like maybe as a board and community, we pick a book or a reading for the quarter, and it's around restorative justice. And, we're doing what we can to get people like PDFs or online free resources or even some books. And we're just trying to build a capacity and vocabulary for our entire community to take ownership over the goals and the guardrails that we all said are important. And then of course, having a family-friendly environment, like we learned from the community listening sessions, it's so important to have refreshments and making sure that there's activities for small children so parents can come and actually participate. And then, of course, we're always going to push for a DJ, but that's ours will have a DJ. Me and Michelle will have a DJ, even if it's me. Anyways, so the intended outcomes would be to increase community understanding of the board's role, priorities, and guardrails. One key thing that I learned doing the community listening sessions is that a lot of people are like, who are you? like, what is the board and what do you do? And I was like, that is a valid question. I just assumed we all knew, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm still learning. So of course, we should be explaining that, what do we do? Okay. So letting people know what we actually do so they can hold us accountable to do it, right? Stronger communication between board and community, greater shared ownership of the district's vision and goals, deeper trust and consistency across the regions, increased collective capacity to support students in schools, and just really just making sure we know coming out to these meetings is a commitment. For you all in the audience, we appreciate you being here. And also it's not the most comfortable setting. Let's be real. It's not we're separated by this barrier, which is cute, no shade, but we're kind of separated and we don't want to be separated. We want to talk. No one's above anybody in this space, but this sort of setup gives that vibe. And so we want to be able to sit in a circle, have coffee, have tea, just talk as people and as humans and not set up this weird dynamic where folks feel like they are below us and we're just talking down to people. It's so weird. And why it matters. Lastly, if we want our goals and guardrails to be lived documents and not just adopted ones, we must invest in ongoing relational engagement. Quarterly regional convenings create a predictable, human-centered structure for learning together, listening deeply, and aligning our collective efforts in service to students. So that is the proposal. Love any discussion? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a great floor. I aspired to have monthly meetings last year. I think I got 4 community meetings in, and I'm having a focus group this Monday. So, folks want to reach out, have parents that want to have an opportunity to talk to Dexter and myself about what's happening on the school buildings committee. I'll be trying to do those frequently and just have these smaller groups. I found that if I don't do that, I spend hours, talking to one parent and then another, sharing the same information. And instead I can, ask a district staff to come do that same thing, right? So that's been helpful for me, right? It's just kind of experimenting. So I think this is great. I would encourage us to kind of be open to what different formats could look like or what, different formats may be needed for, different things that are contentious. I also think that we can strive to individually or, as a board have monthly meetings, but I think to have a quarterly meeting that's kind of focused on board work makes a lot of sense, right? So I think if, my monthly meetings might have everything from the, Nathan Bishop, Hope High issues to the new middle school teacher model, teams model that, a lot of parents have reached out to me about. But I think having designated meetings where we go over, okay, where are we in our goals and guardrails? Where do we see, some of the challenges ahead? Where do we see, some hurdles that we've already went through, right? And having those larger conversations in a more structured kind of form that the whole board is kind of invested in. I think it's good work. So thank you all for, taking the initiative and putting this together. And if anybody has anyone that wants to learn more about school buildings and or want to team up with me on a future focus group, I know me and Heidi talked about doing something around policy. Reach out. I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to jumping on as well. So full support.
Any other board members? Chairman Michael? Chairman John, I'm gonna be reaching out to you so we can meeting my region and also with new area as well. And I want especially also to thank the leadership. And I think that it's very important to continue to engage our community. Okay, we cannot attend this meeting, so they are aware of the big changes that.
No, I just want to say thank you. That was something I'm looking forward to do, and I was hoping to do it this year with Heidi. I know she's out on maternity leave, but we were thinking about doing this. We actually met back in the summer. So yeah, I just love this, and be more accessible to people and actually talk about to parents what is actually our role. Because even my daughters ask me, what's my role? And I sometimes cannot explain. I put it in my own words. So yes, I thank you for having this.
No, thank you.
I just wanted to elevate that I think that it's absolutely necessary, like you said, to have it be like the flavor and like be able to be customizable to the region and the people who are doing it. So they don't have to look a certain way, like we don't want to be prescriptive about what they look like or what they feel like. We may go in there and try to curate it one way and the community's like, no, like we need, it needs to feel a different way. We're looking for something more informal or we're looking for something more formal. Like we just don't know until we start doing it. So I think having that flexibility is going to definitely be key. I think one thing that by us deciding as a group to do this, hopefully what it can do is add more capacity for people, because I know it can also be daunting to be like, dang, I got to do like a meeting, curate a meeting on my own. Some people are more comfortable with that than other board members. And so if we could create some capacity where it's like, okay, so you the regions have a meeting, let's make sure if you all need help with like flyer design, we can help you with that. Or if you need help with calendar invites or some talking points for like important priorities, that way not every person is having to take that on by themselves, but that there's like a sort of hub for like, all right, let's make sure we get information in people's hands so you can go do what you do, which is connect with the community, but not have to worry about generating all the materials or all the different things. So I think there's ways to build capacity. And then I also think about what AJ talks about from Great City Schools. He says lone board members are bad for business. And the idea that pairing up is how we keep each other accountable for what we're saying to people and making sure that we're representing the board in a way with fidelity and authenticity. And I think doing it together will help create that.
Just want to add, like, as she said, like the flavor might be different, but as long as we're given the same information, I think that's what's important. So coming together, picking out, okay, this is what we're going to share out on, these are the data points, even putting together little one-pagers or whatever, and then how you give that information based on your region, cool. But yeah, just all of us having the same kind of information that we're sharing so community can feel it's cohesive and planned and structured and intentional to make sure they know we're here for them. Yeah.
Any other questions? Charlie, are we able to, and since it's under action item, put this in like a form of resolution for us to like commit to? Something along those lines?
You could certainly do it by way of resolution.
How would I word that?
Style it, if you want to try to craft it by way of a motion, I would just change the motion to, to adopt the resolution. The motion would be to adopt the resolution by the board to, however you want to phrase it.
Okay. Sure,
I'll
do it.
I move that we adopt a resolution, to commit to having quarterly community listening sessions.
We have a resolution on the floor, well, motion on the floor, or resolution second by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Vice President Newman and Secretary Fonts. We are going to move to the last item, or second to last item, which is the portrait of a graduate presentation. Dr. Dillon is
And Dr. Onye.
and Dr. Onye. Welcome. Again, please, if you can, just state both of your names for the record and get right into the presentation.
That's on here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Nicole Onye. It's good to see all of you this evening. The other one on the other side.
On the other side.
Right here.
Thank you. And I'm Dr. Paula Dillon. Thank you. I am going to hand off the beginning of the presentation to Dr. Onye. She has been working tirelessly on the portrait of the graduate with different teams for 2 years? 3 years. And more recently, I have worked with the outcomes of those committees in terms of developing ways to combine and develop measurements for the competencies of the portrait of the graduate. So that connects directly to the goal 5 that the board is adopting for their goals and guardrails. But I would love to pass it to Dr. Onye so she can talk to you about the work that she's engaged in with the different teams across the district over the past couple of years, getting us to where we are today.
Thank you. So, someone said earlier that they're feeling emotional because they're finally starting to see something come together, and that's how I feel about this. This is my 26th year, somebody just reminded me. 26th year of progress, I can't believe it. And thank you, I'm still here, I made it to 2026. And it's my, I think, 17th year in the district office, I believe. So, if my math is correct. And this is something that has come up since I started as a teacher here in the district, this idea of creating a shared vision for what we expect students to know and be able to do, and how we define success. We obviously know that it's really important. Academic success is why we're all here. That is very important. I love the goals and guardrails that I've been listening to over the last couple of months, and I'm also emotional because I'm so excited to see it coming to fruition, because it needs to be really clear to our families that we need business, and that we hope to support every student, no matter where they come from, no matter what their national origin, race, or color, to be the best they can be when they leave our district. And so the portrait of a graduate is a great way to really develop this shared vision that everyone can connect to, regardless of language, race, color. It's a K-12 opportunity for us to really be very clear about what we mean by success. It also serves as a North Star. So a lot of people know that one thing Paul and I have in common is we like alignment. It's really important, and it's something that has not necessarily always been our forte here in the district. So this idea of really aligning curriculum instruction and assessment in a way that makes it clear to students, and in a way that they can also get into. And it also fosters community. The portrait of a graduate is an opportunity to bring businesses together, community members together, to really meet with students and talk about what's really important. What is it they want to see when students leave high school and come to them for employment? Or what do they want to see during internships during high school? What are some of those essential skills beyond academic? What are some of those life skills that are really important to get our students ready for a very complicated and complex world that's ever changing daily? So that's really, I wanted to just kind of share that with folks, because I think as I was listening to Vice President Newman about these listening sessions, I think I'm also thinking about how do we communicate why this is important to the community. So how do we begin to talk about this so that students, parents, and community members also understand it and can get involved. Thank you. So just to real quickly, I think for the history of portrait, this slide, I think what's really important for people to know here, you can read it for yourself. One of the things I'm proud of in this district is that we started with students. The Portrait of a Graduate work began in 2022 when we started Respect. And students in Respect, some of them decided to come and meet in the summer. 30 students out of 60 decided they wanted to meet at Brown in the summer to really unpack this work and also develop their leadership skills. So we were able to get an artist and who spent some time with students, interviewing students. They spent time with us for those 9 days at Brown, really listening and interviewing and speaking and meeting with students around what they thought was really important for people to know about what their dreams and desires were. So that timeline is important, but to me, the most important thing about that timeline is you will see in every shape or form that there were students involved all along the way. We also had several working groups. We had a full working group of about close to 30 people, and then a lot happened in the district, and a lot of folks, a lot of departments kind of closed, and people kind of regrouped, and then we resurrected the working group and brought in some more folks as well. So at each point, we had about 20 to 30 adults during each time who actually went back to schools to re-interview students to make sure that the conversations and the data that have been collected in 2022 and 23 was still relevant. And if they had any more to say, we wanted to really get that data from them. And so, can you go back to the very first page? I'm sorry, the very first cover?
That's fine. Or not.
The very first one. So during those 9 days at Brown, August 2023, we had an artist in the community who actually did a live rendering. It took him 3 days. He did it in 3 days based on all of the conversations. It's not the full picture, but he encapsulated what students were feeling and thinking in that particular portrait. And I bring that up because students who were there and who have been with Respect along the way, they keep asking, hey, Miss, Dr. Onion, when is this happening? When is it coming? And they really think that some of them really thought that this was going to go away. And so it's exciting for me to be able to share with them, once the board approves, that we are moving forward with this work and that their work is going to be seen. So that was the very first rendering. That rendering is 3 years old, and it was literally what an artist was able to compile based on what students said they were feeling and thinking at the time. And they gave it the blessing, understanding that it might change, right? It might change and evolve. And I'll show you what that means right now. Here's what we're thinking about in terms of the timeline. The most important thing there is number one, board adoption. We, of course, can't move forward until the board hopefully agrees that this is important work, approves the work, and adopts it so that we can continue to move forward with the rest of the timeline, which includes training, development and implementation plan, aligning to the curriculum. There's a lot that needs to happen. But the most important thing I think right now is really sharing with you what the finished result can look like and then getting your blessing.
In working with Council of Great City Schools, some of this timeline has been extended a little bit, so you'll see that on Bill 5.
So the reason I wanted to get here, then I can turn it over to you, Paul, if you have anything else to add, some other things to add, is these are the competencies that we have landed on. Now, just so you know, at the very beginning in August 2023, the students had, I think, 22 competencies. And before 2025, we were able to get those competencies down to about 8. But if you know anything, especially around NEASC, when we're talking about competencies, just like we were talking about these goals and guardrails, it's easy to say we have these goals and guardrails. It's another thing to say we're actually implementing them and measuring them, and we can actually show impact. And so trying to do that with 8 competencies, it's a lot, right? Because you want to make sure that this is happening K-12. You have to make sure that people are trained, understand, and that there's time for learning. And so we have settled on these 5 competencies. The vision here is that this will be our portrait of a graduate. That picture that I showed you, that very first page, it's embedded in the center. So if this was a web page, what would happen is when people land on the page and they click in the middle, it would open up to the original with a history of how the portrait came to be. And if you look at other districts around the country and states around the country, only a few of them have done that. Some of them have very carefully documented the history, but a lot of folks have not. So I think that would make us pretty unique, and it would also send a message to students that what they said and the time that they put in really matters. So, and these 5 competencies, if you were able to take a look at the original 21 or 22, they're actually embedded, right? You know, there's a lot of semantics, critical thinking, problem solving. There's lots of different ways to show that. So I think that eventually, when we get this off the ground, we have our webpage, and we have our posters. If you look at some of the other slides, those would be some examples. These are the competencies. If you get to some of the, just get real quickly to some of the, right, so this is an example of what could be an elementary poster. We would have in our elementary schools, and at the bottom, we would have the actual portrait of the graduate. So we're thinking large posters, lots of messaging, having students get involved, some listening sessions, some community sessions in schools to really get their feedback as well. So I'm going to stop there. We have one of these for each of the grade levels. There's middle school, and then there's high school. And if you look at the language is layered, right? At each level, we're adding more on. And the same thing with our rubrics. K and 12 are very different, but we're preparing students all along the way to be successful as they progress through each grade level.
So, as Dr. Onye indicated, one of the important things about a portrait of a graduate is for it to be able to be measured for impact, right? Are we looking at the right things? Are we having the ability to have impact, or the student outcomes showing that impact? And so on this page, on the competency page, what you see are the definitions, kind of simplified for each of the 5 competencies. So you can see those. The second competency, civic and global engagement, will be Board Goal 5. And it's that they demonstrate commitment to civic responsibility, equity, and justice, and engage as a local and global change maker. So that's the overarching definition of the civic and global engagement. And each of the competencies have a definition like that. But then from there, it breaks down even further. So what does that mean? And so we, this summer, we worked with the Association of American Colleges and Universities. And we took their rubrics that they had developed around these competencies, and we backward mapped them all the way down to pre-K. And so we took the language that they had, we looked at our standards that we have for our PK-12 environment, and we crosswalked that language. And so we created measurable rubrics for each of the competencies. And this is just a snapshot of an example. So for civic and global engagement, one of the areas that we'll be looking at and being able to measure and give feedback on, if you look at the progression, in elementary, we are looking for students who are participating in classrooms and school community with care and respect, recognizing the importance of helping others. Then as they move into middle school, we want them to be exploring civic issues, participating in group projects, considering diverse perspectives to support community well-being. And then in high school, we really want them to engage in civic action, evaluate public issues, and contribute to local and global communities with purpose and integrity. And so we have this kind of language for each of the competencies and a rubric that connects to that. What does that look like? How do we measure that? And so we will be updating this. So we have our goal for our civic and global engagement, that we're increasing the number of students graduating with proficiency on the portrait of graduate civic and global engagement rubric. And I have soft numbers here from 0% because we don't have a baseline to 70% by 2030. And so we talked about that earlier. So that will develop with the interim SMART measures and the timeline that we'll be discussing on the 28th. But very excited to have these competencies in place. But more importantly, I've been a member of NEASC and gone on many NEASC visits. Dr. Altman talked about that. Most schools do not have a way to measure your competencies. And I'm really excited that we will actually be one of, and these have been around for a long time, and it's like feedback to districts across the New England states. Yes, you have them, but how are you measuring them? And I'm really excited that we will be able to start doing that.
I was on my first NEASC visit, first part-time that I actually participated in NEASC was when I was a teacher at Classical. I was on one of the committees. And I remember the feedback. We got great feedback, but one of the things they talked about was the fact that we didn't have a portrait of a graduate. And they spoke about developing one for the school and also developing the rubrics. And I remember thinking, I was teaching chemistry at the time, and I was excited about being on the team. And I was like, why are we putting that on one school? Why don't we have one for the district? I mean, that was in 2000. And so this is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing opportunity for us. And I also think that a lot of times we talk to schools about including students in their school transformation. And a lot of folks sometimes have a difficulty figuring that out. That's one of the important things about respect, because absolutely this is a foundation of respect, right? Giving students that space. I think this is also going to help principals and school teams to think differently about how they can actually engage students, because students are going to be excited about this. They'll be able to see at any level how they can actually engage and actually feel like they're making a difference in their school. And when kids want to come to school and they're excited about school, they do better. We know that their attendance is better and their academic performance is better. So I think this is going to be a change maker for our district.
Thank you. When I look at the graduate portrait of students, I really think about the importance, it's okay, yes, we wrote out the competencies, we have the rubrics, we have the expectation, but what we can forget is the communication with the students, because that's what's going to affect. So from early on, when you start having those conversations with students in elementary, this is what we expect you to be and become by the time you graduate high school. They already have, it's a map. Like any of us are gonna go traveling, you don't just jump in your car, unless you know the city well. You don't just jump in your car and go from point A to point B without knowing. Sometimes I use your TomTom or your Waze to get around. So it's about giving the students a map on how to get from point A to point B, and knowing that this is the expectation of what you can be doing in order to be successful in the
Dr. Williamson?
So, I just want to thank you so much for this. Again, just sort of what I said before, I feel like we're all pulling in the same direction, and it's really exciting to see this work being done, and also the fact, the timeline, right? That this is something that has been, I was, as I said before, in the TAP plan, talking about the need for this. This is work that's been under development, and I'm so excited that we did manage to have a goal that encapsulates this, even if we don't see what that looks like, right? You know what I mean? Even if that's something that doesn't come to fruition until closer to 2030, it's something that we're all working towards. I think I'm a huge fan of the liberal arts. I have a background in political science. I think civics education is really essential. And I would also say that all of the other competencies that you have listed here are not exactly the same, but they are the building blocks of civic and global engagement. So if you don't have intercultural competence, if you don't have, quantitative literacy, there's no way to be effective in civic engagement. So I think that it's really exciting to see that. And I think we tell students that all of those other things are important, that you should be literate, that you should be able to engage in critical thinking, be able to make arguments persuasively, that you should be able to understand numbers. But the question is always, well, why? How is this going to help me? And this is the answer, right? This is the why. And I really feel like the goals, I know that the Council of Great City Schools counsels against having, they would have liked us to have 1 to 3 goals. We ended up with 5. But I feel like these 5 goals are really work together, right? And I feel like that there's everything, this is sort of the crowning piece. In my own opinion, my own editorial opinion, the primary purpose of education should be to produce people who are good citizens. You know what I mean? To help people be good and ethical and be part of the community. Getting a job and all that other stuff is actually secondary in my mind. So I know that's not a popular opinion, but I'm really, really excited about this. I'm sorry for editorializing.
One of the people from Solution Tree that I've worked with for a number of years, her name is Cassie Erkins. And she always reminded me that what gets measured is what matters, right? And that we haven't really measured these things before, so it wasn't showing as a value that we held because we weren't measuring it. And by measuring it and having the rubrics and reporting to you on it is a way for us to show you this matters.
Vice President Newman?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. And what I hope is that the work that the Respect students started, right? Like, yeah, I think it's the crown and the piece, and I think it's the heartbeat of what we're trying to say, right? Like in our vision statement, right? And like how all of these goals and guardrails line up. Like, my hope is that the goals and guardrails can actually give this wings, because like so often, and Dr. Onye, I'm just gonna say, like, you're always ahead of your time. Like you, like you and the work that you do, like, and I know what it's like to be in a position where you're advocating for something 10 years in advance, and then 10 years later, folks are like, oh, that thing, And so it's just like, it's a thing. And what my hope for this is, I just want to speak it into the universe, is like, my hope is that the goals and the guardrails uplift that of the Respect students, of your office, of your vision, of the 26 years you put here, right? That this gives it that validity, because it's already valid, but a lot of times we have to fight for the invisible, you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to matters of like the heart and of race and of equality and equity. Like, these are all like invisible dimensions that have real world physical impacts. And if we don't deal with the invisible, we don't get to the root of what really matters in the world. So I really, really love this. I want to commend you. I guess I have one question about, it's really clear to see where like goal 1 and 2, like things that deal with numeracy and literacy, like in math class, in English class, that's where these things are like centered and live and are measured. How do you all imagine, like, where does civic and global engagement take place? Is it history, or like, is it, are these competencies taking place in specific classes, or are they like across classes?
Yeah, so I think across classes for sure. But part of the work that we're going to engage in is to map each of these competencies across the PK, so that we're ensuring that students have the opportunity to practice, engage, and be measured and receive feedback on each of these competencies multiple times before they graduate, right? And so that is one of the next legs of this work, is saying, okay, where are we measuring each of these in a formal way, and where are we just engaging in these as practice along the way? So we should be doing the same, is formal and practice along the way, and defining that. So we should have a heat map of where each of these live and are measured, so that students have those opportunities multiple times in a formal way, but are also engaged in them in an informal way from 10-year pre-K.
And I think a way for us to hold ourselves accountable, that's a great question, is for students to be able to ask that question, and where they're not able to, push for that, right? So, because at the end of the day, especially as students get a little older, when you start to talk about middle and high school, I would like to see students decide for themselves where those competencies lie, right? And in my mind, and I tend to walk the Cadillac model all the time, they should be able to see all of this in each of their classes. And if they're not able to, then the question is, how do we support our instruction? How do we support our curriculum so that students can access any of these competencies in different doses, right? Throughout their, across all their courses. That's really the ideal. We're not there yet, but that would be, that's why this is so important, because this is also a way to really improve and also change and transform instruction.
100%. It's making me think a lot about College Unbound as a proud graduate. Oh, Michelle, we got a bunch of College Unbound grads, in the building. What I love about College Unbound is their Big Ten is the curriculum. The Big Ten are the social, emotional, and civic engagement competencies that are the curriculum. So when you're a student at College Unbound, the Big Ten, like it's like the school song. Like it's like a mantra, like everybody, whether you're taking classes in the ACI, in, New York, Rhode Island, wherever, Jamestown, Chicago, like this cohorts across the nation, we're all unified by the Big Ten. And one of the things that I love about it, because College Unbound is for adult learners, and the thing that drew me to College Unbound was that they have a way of assessing your life experience and giving you credit for it through learning in public portfolios, LIPs. And so I am wondering if that's something that, because so many of our students are coming from, other countries and they've been working since they were 8 years old. Like they got more work experience than me, you know what I'm saying? Like some people come here just like from experiences that you can't learn in a school. And they have all this. They're like, I have this competence since I was 10. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the district could think about, or maybe it's thinking about, I should say.
I know.
Yeah, it's thinking about how do we credit what they already are coming to us with and learning? And is that something that you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, so let's talk about what that looks like. So, RIDE passed new graduation requirements that you've adopted. And part of that are flex credits. And so one of the things that we need to start thinking about and coming together as a committee of learners is what constitutes a flex credit. How do we capture that in a portfolio of student work so that we're able to give students competency-based credits rather than seat time credits. So that is part of the new regulations. The other part of the regulations are our ability to now give students credit and opportunities around work-based learning. So many of our students work, some as part of internships, but others, just as part of work. And so what does that look like for the student? What are they gaining from that work? Is there anything that we can connect back to in terms of credits and flex credits and learning? So all of those pieces we started, I think you adopted, did we adopt last year? Or was the year before? Years of running. Yes. So the school board that was in place when RIDE put
2 years.
2 years ago adopted those, and now we've been working on understanding what our opportunities are, and that begins with the class of 2028. So we'll be reporting to you on different opportunities regarding flex credits, and I'm so excited about that. I know Dr. Onegas as well.
I can't say any more than that, but I will say that we'll picture a student, eventually as they're graduating with a portfolio to be able to show their employer, to be able to show colleges, not just the grades, right? Not just I've got A, because, I've sat on admissions before. Sometimes grades don't necessarily always tell the whole story. We need to be able to show, not only say I got these grades, but here's what I can do. Here's what I know I can do, and I'm ready to go ahead and take that entry level job right out of high school because I've done these things and here's the proof, right? And then also being able to, show what you can do and not have to take a class and take something else. Maybe I want to take a college course in my 10th grade year because I can show you that I've met these competencies this way. So I mean, there's an amazing opportunity here, and I hope I'm around to see it, but I just think we have to this is a way to really start thinking about doing schools differently. The world is different, it's changing, and we've got to change as well. And so this has great potential, and Paul has already described it perfectly. It's exciting.
We have our individual learning plan requirement as well for our students, so they're building their resumes, they're building their portfolios, and we're trying to understand how we connect that requirement for an individual learning portfolio with these flex credits and those opportunities so that students can really go and show the package of who they are to whatever it is that they're trying to enter into. So if they're trying to enter into a career or a job or into a college, they have this package of amazing pieces. Providence is also one of the first districts to give competency-based credits for students who already are masters of a language. And so we're really proud about that work. So really acknowledging that what students bring with them are assets, and how do we measure that and give credit for that?
I was gonna say, as I am entering my sort of final stage, college now, and doing some research, I've seen that there's a lot of universities that actually is able to, or have something considered like flex credits. They call that CU Big Tens. Is there a way that it's being structured in PPSD where maybe their graduate portfolio or the flex credits could possibly be presented to universities in a way where they can show them this is what we've done, and they can sort of check the box like, okay, well, you get credits in this area, which would be considered college credits. Have you guys thought about that piece?
Yes, so we have many meetings with the colleges, especially our local colleges, to understand what they will accept and not accept. We're also having those meetings with NCAA. Yeah, because the sports requirements are different, and so we have to also make sure that we're not disadvantaging students, because those meetings are harder than meeting with the colleges, believe it or not. And so we're trying to understand, and so like the world language credits are one thing, but how we are putting together their portfolios with the students is another thing. And so RIDE and the Council of K-12 is meeting with the secondary, the post-secondary council as well, to understand what the connection is. So our external partners are also meeting on this, and that will support our work as well.
Any other questions?
Just want to say, like, my heart is so proud. I feel like our students will be able to dream, which is super important. One of the most important things is giving students the ability to have hope and dream for what their future looks like. And this makes me feel that. I just want to ask, at College Unbound, I know I was a student who, when I did my Big Ten portfolios, I was allowed to record my answer. And I'm wondering, are you guys accepting different form? Like, are you just expecting students to write? Are you accepting recorded videos, like pictures, possible?
Yes. So this summer, we began our training with a Universal Design for Learning. And one of the components of universal design is on product and process, and giving students opportunities across different modalities in terms of how they learn, but also how they demonstrate what they know and are able to do. So that's been a big piece of the work that we began this year as well. So we have a lot of, I think, early stage work, but it's exciting work.
Yes, definitely. And this is gonna help tie it all together.
Thank you. No questions? All right, thank you both so much. I'm going to move to items 6.1, adjournment of the meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion has been made by Secretary Foster. A second. Second has been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you. January 21st. Everybody available? Special meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I'll be around.
Just need a form. Hi. Hi.